Wesley Parker tightened his grip on the cardboard box in his arms, his 7-year-old daughter clinging to his side as they stared up at the towering glass building. "This doesn't look like an apartment complex," he muttered to himself, heart thudding. "Daddy," Felicity whispered, "are you sure this is Aunt Jackie's new place?" Wesley looked down at her, brushing a curly strand of hair from her cheek. "The GPS said this is the address she gave me. Maybe it's a fancy condo complex or something." Truth was, he had no idea. Jackie had texted him a new address right before her phone died last night, and since his own phone was a cracked prepaid mess, he couldn't double-check. All he knew was that after losing his job at the auto shop and getting evicted 2 weeks later, he and Felicity had nowhere else to go. So he pressed the buzzer. The sleek glass door clicked open. Inside, the lobby gleamed, marble floors, a chandelier like something out of a movie. He felt Felicity's fingers tighten around his. "Maybe Aunt Jackie got rich," she whispered. "Maybe," Wesley muttered, stepping inside, every muscle tight with discomfort. "Let's just find her." They stepped into the elevator and he pressed the penthouse button, mostly because her message had said top floor. The elevator whooshed up silently. Wesley's worn boots squeaked on the polished floor as they stepped out. He knocked on the only door. It opened almost instantly, and there she stood. Not Jackie, definitely not Jackie. A woman in a silk blouse and tan slacks, barefoot but poised, her dark hair pulled into a messy but expensive-looking bun. She blinked at him, confused. "Yes," Wesley shifted awkwardly. "Hey, I might have the wrong place. I'm looking for Jackie Meadows." The woman tilted her head. "There's no Jackie here." "Oh," he exhaled slowly, embarrassed. "Sorry to bother you, ma'am. Guess I got the address wrong." He turned to leave. "Wait." Her voice was firm. "You don't look like someone who belongs in this building." Wesley turned back, trying not to bristle. She looked down at Felicity, then up at him again. Something in her expression softened. "You have a kid with you. Are you all right?" He hesitated. "We're fine." His stomach growled loudly. She raised an eyebrow. Felicity looked up at her. "We came a long way. Daddy said we'd see Aunt Jackie and maybe get pancakes." The woman's features shifted like a crack in the ice. "You haven't eaten?" Wesley's pride screamed at him, but he nodded once. She opened the door wider. "Come in," he blinked. "What? I'm not going to let a kid go hungry." "Come in. I don't even know your name." She extended her hand. "Kendra Jamison, and you are?" "Wesley Parker. This is my daughter, Felicity." Kendra gave Felicity a gentle smile. "Hi, sweetheart," Felicity beamed. "Hi. Your house is shiny." Kendra actually laughed, a warm sound that surprised Wesley. "Thanks, come on, let's get you some pancakes." Wesley sat at the marble kitchen island, his eyes darting around the sleek penthouse kitchen like he'd stepped into another world, stainless steel everything. A view of the skyline that made his stomach turn, and Kendra was flipping pancakes herself. "So, fancy kitchen but you cook?" he asked, voice low. Kendra glanced over her shoulder. "I like to. It's one of the few things I can control," he frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" she shrugged. "When you run a company with 400 employees, everyone wants something from you, but pancakes, they never disappoint." Wesley blinked. "You run a company." Kendra set a plate of pancakes in front of Felicity, who clapped. "Yup, CEO of Jamison Tech." Wesley stared. He'd heard of that company. They made security software for half the hotels in the country. "You're a billionaire," she laughed. "Not quite, but close." Wesley dropped his gaze. Felicity dug in, blissfully unaware of the tension that crept into her father's posture. "I'm grateful," he said after a moment, "but we won't stay long. As soon as I figure out where Jackie is, you're not going anywhere until you eat too," Kendra said, placing a plate in front of him. "And shower. You both look like you've been through it." He stiffened. "We're not charity." "I didn't say you were." They locked eyes for a beat too long. Something warm flickered in her gaze, but he looked away. 2 hours later, Felicity was curled up on the couch watching cartoons on a screen bigger than any wall they'd ever owned. Wesley stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed, staring down at the city. Kendra joined him, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She handed him one. "I called the building's front desk," she said. "No one named Jackie Meadows has ever lived here." His jaw tightened. "Figures? Do you have anyone else?" He shook his head. "No family, just me and her." Kendra studied him. Her gaze was too perceptive, and it made his skin itch. You know, she said slowly, I don't usually let strange men into my home. Guess I'm lucky. No, she said, her voice soft. I think I am. He turned to look at her, she smiled, and he realized she wasn't just being kind, she was interested. In him, he couldn't remember the last time anyone looked at him like that. You're not what I expected, she added. And what did you expect? Someone who'd pretend he had it together. You didn't, that's rare, he swallowed hard. I'm not used to people like you talking to people like me. That's your problem, she said with a small grin. You think I'm someone you can't talk to? Wesley tilted his head. Aren't you? Kendra stepped closer. I wasn't always rich, you know. I grew up in Ohio in a 2-bedroom apartment with 4 siblings. My mom worked nights. I know what it's like to be scared of the rent, he blinked. So how'd you end up here? She shrugged. Worked my ass off. Felicity shouted something from the couch about wanting more syrup. Kendra smiled. You've got a good kid. Yeah, she's all I've got. Kendra looked at him again. And this time what he saw in her eyes wasn't just kindness, it was interest, attraction, a spark. He looked away, heart pounding. You should stay the night, she said suddenly. What? Not in my bed, she added with a laugh, cheeks flushing. I mean you and Felicity, you can take the guest room. You shouldn't be out walking around with a kid and know where to go. He hesitated. Please, she said, it's just one night. Wesley glanced at his daughter, who was now fast asleep on the plush couch with syrup on her cheek. He turned back to Kendra. Okay, he said quietly, just one night, but deep down, something told him this wasn't going to be just one night. Not even close. Wesley awoke to the unfamiliar sensation of soft sheets and silence. For a moment, he wasn't sure where he was. Then the gold accents on the ceiling fixture reminded him he was in a guest room that probably cost more than his last 2 apartments combined. Felicity stirred beside him, her small hand gripping his shirt. She hadn't moved much all night and he'd stayed half awake, listening for any unfamiliar sounds. But the place was quiet. Too quiet. He eased out of bed, careful not to wake her, and stepped into the hallway. The scent of coffee floated in from the kitchen. He followed it, until he found Kendra sitting at a granite breakfast bar, laptop open, tapping away with a kind of sharp focus that made him hesitate before speaking. She noticed him and glanced up, her expression unreadable for a second before easing into something lighter. Morning. There's coffee. He stepped closer. Didn't think you'd still be here. Figured someone like you would already be at work by now. I work from home on Tuesdays, she said, reaching for her mug. Well, sometimes. Depends on how many crises are on fire. You run a company, he said. Aren't they all on fire? Her eyes flicked toward him, amused. You're not wrong. He poured himself a cup, unsure if he should sit or leave. She gestured to the stool beside her. He sat, wrapping his hands around the mug. Felicity's still out. She usually wakes up early, but I think yesterday wore her down. Kendra closed her laptop. She's safe here. You both are. He gave a half nod, unsure how to respond to that. Do you have a plan for today? She asked after a pause. Wesley hesitated. I was going to head back toward West Harlem, try to find a shelter or somewhere we can stay while I look for work. I've got a buddy who might still work construction, might need a few days to track him down. Her brow furrowed. You're taking a child to knock on job sites. No, he said quickly. I'd leave her with someone I trust if I can find someone. She leaned forward. What if there was another option? He met her gaze. Like what? I need someone to help around here. Errands, driving. Someone who doesn't ask questions when I say I need a file delivered across the city in under an hour. It's not glamorous, but it pays. Wesley blinked. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a temporary arrangement, she said evenly. Until you find something better. You said you worked with cars. Can you drive anything? Stick, automatic, box trucks, forklifts. I've even towed a yacht once. Her eyes lit up with interest. I like that answer. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't want handouts. This wouldn't be, she said. I'd be your employer, you'd be paid. If you can handle a GPS and don't mind dealing with the occasional overpaid executive having a meltdown in the backseat, you'll be fine. Wesley studied her. You don't even know me. I don't, she agreed. But you didn't steal anything. You didn't lie. You didn't pretend to be someone you're not. That's a better start than most people I've hired. He looked down at his hands. I haven't worn anything without holes in months. I have a driver's uniform that should fit you. One of my old employees left it behind when he moved to Miami to open a cigar lounge. You're serious, dead serious, he exhaled. And Felicity. If she's okay staying here during the day, I'll have someone watch her. My house manager, Isabel, has 4 grandkids. She's practically a professional at this point, but only if you're comfortable with that. He didn't answer right away. She didn't press. Finally, he nodded. 1 week, that's all I'll take. Fair, he stood. I'll get her dressed. We won't be in your way. You're not, she said. And Wesley, he paused. I meant what I said. You don't have to keep bracing for the next hit. Not here. Later that morning, Wesley adjusted the stiff collar of the black uniform shirt and glanced in the mirror near the foyer. He almost didn't recognize himself. The shirt fit better than expected, and Isabel had pressed the pants like she ran a hotel. Felicity emerged from the hallway, her hair in 2 neat puffs, holding a coloring book and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Isabel made me turkey and cheese, she said proudly. Be polite, he murmured, resting a hand on her shoulder. I am, Felicity whispered back. Then louder, thank you for the sandwich, Isabel. The older woman smiled kindly. You're welcome, sweetheart. We're going to pick out stickers later. Felicity lit up. I love stickers. Kendra appeared from the kitchen, keys in one hand, sunglasses in the other. She paused, taking him in. You clean up well. I feel like a mannequin, he replied. Then you're ready for the city. She handed him a slim black binder. First job is easy. Drop this off at a law office in Tribeca. Use the town car downstairs. It's under your name now with clearance at the garage. He opened the binder, trying to hide how foreign this all felt. And after that, there'll be a list. But get through today first. He gave a quick nod, then turned to Felicity. You gonna be okay here? She nodded. We're gonna plant herbs on the terrace, he blinked. There's a terrace, Kendra smiled. There's a lot you haven't seen yet. As he stepped into the elevator, his reflection in the polished doors stared back a man who had woken up in a stranger's home and was now headed to a law office in a luxury vehicle. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. But for the first time in weeks, he felt like the ground beneath him wasn't crumbling. And when he glanced back, Kendra was still standing in the doorway, watching him leave, not like someone who pitied him, but like someone who was waiting for him to come back. The first week passed in a blur of unexpected normalcy. Wesley delivered contracts, picked up designers from airports, and once had to retrieve a rare bottle of French wine from a restaurant across the city because Kendra's board dinner required a very specific vintage. He never questioned her requests, and she never micromanaged how he handled them. It worked, but everything shifted on Friday night. He returned to the penthouse later than usual, his black jacket damp from the sudden rainstorm that had swept through Manhattan. Isabel met him at the door, handing him a towel and whispering that Felicity had fallen asleep after watching a ballet documentary with her. Wesley stepped into the living room, setting his keys on the entry table, and froze. Kendra stood by the piano in a navy gown that shimmered under the ambient lighting. Her hair was swept back in a clean, elegant twist. A diamond bracelet glinted on her wrist as she adjusted an earring in the wall mirror. He cleared his throat. She turned, noticing him for the first time. You're back. Didn't realize you had somewhere to be, he said. You look like you're about to host the Oscars, she laughed softly. Close. A fundraising gala for tech education. I'm being forced to smile at people who pretend they invented the internet. He reached for the towel again. I can drive you. Already arranged, she said. Tonight requires arriving in a vintage Rolls-Royce with a driver who wears white gloves. Guess I'm not quite fancy enough yet. Her eyes flicked to his soaked shirt. You're soaked. Storm came out of nowhere. She crossed the room, pulled something from the coat closet and tossed it to him. A thick, dry hoodie. He caught it. This yours? My brother left it here months ago and never came back for it. She paused. You're the same size. He pulled it over his head. Thanks. She hesitated, then stepped closer. You've been doing well. I've had fewer complaints from executives this week than I have in months. Glad to be useful. You're more than useful. Her voice dipped just slightly, like she wasn't sure she should say it. Everyone who meets you likes you, that's rare. He didn't answer. The weight of her gaze made the air feel heavier. I should go, she said quickly, stepping back. Right, he nodded. Enjoy the gala. She reached for her clutch, then paused again. You could come, he blinked. Come where? Tonight, with me. He stared at her. You just said I wasn't fancy enough, her lips parted. That was a joke. I don't own a suit, I wouldn't even know which fork to use. You don't need to, just stand beside me and look like you belong, which you would. You want me to pretend? No, she said, more firmly now. I want you to come as you are, because I think you're strong enough to walk into a room full of billionaires and not flinch. He stepped back. That's not my world. Maybe it doesn't have to be, she said quietly, but I understand. If you're not comfortable, I won't push. He stood there, hoodie clinging to his damp shirt, heart pounding for reasons he didn't want to name. Thank you, he said, but I should stay with Felicity. She nodded once. Of course. The door shut behind her with a soft click. The next morning, Wesley found her in the kitchen in yoga pants and a loose tank top, sipping water and scrolling through her tablet. Good night, he asked, pouring himself coffee. She didn't look up. It was fine. You don't sound thrilled. She set the tablet down. Let's just say I left early, he raised an eyebrow. Someone made a comment about my charity pet project being adorable, she said. They were referring to you. His jaw tightened. I wasn't going to tell you, she added. But I figured if I keep shielding you, you'll never know how ugly this world can be. I already know. She pushed the tablet aside. Then you should also know that I didn't correct them. I didn't defend you. He stared at her. Why? Because I froze, she admitted. I've spent years building a reputation in this city. One wrong expression, one defensive tone, and it all unravels. I hate that I care, but I do. He folded his arms. So I'm a liability. No, she said, eyes fierce now. You're the only person who's made me question whether any of it even matters. Silence settled between them. Then she added, I'm sorry. He didn't speak for a moment, then said, I don't belong in your world, Kendra. Maybe not, she said. But maybe I don't belong in it either. That afternoon, while Felicity played with Isabel on the terrace, Wesley walked into the garage and stared at the town car. He didn't start it. He just sat behind the wheel, gripping it like an anchor. He was falling for her. He knew it the same way he knew how to fix an engine by sound alone, and that terrified him. Because Kendra Jamison didn't just live in another world, she ruled it. But when he returned upstairs, he found her standing on the balcony in a simple t-shirt, watching the sky turn orange. He joined her without speaking. She didn't look at him, just said, I've been thinking about last night. He waited. I want to introduce you to people, not as an employee, not as a project, just as someone in my life. He exhaled slowly. That's a big step. I know. You sure you're ready for that? She turned to him. I'm not sure of anything, but I know I don't want to keep pretending you're just my driver. His heart thudded, and when she reached for his hand, he didn't pull away. Because maybe, just maybe, he was ready to stop pretending too. Wesley adjusted the collar of his navy jacket in the mirror, trying to ignore how strange it felt to wear something tailored. The fabric was crisp, the sleeves perfectly hemmed, nothing like the second-hand shirts he'd worn for years. Isabel had insisted he wear it tonight, and Kendra had silently approved with a nod that carried more weight than words. Daddy, your shoes are shiny, Felicity said from the doorway, her eyes wide as she hugged her stuffed bear. He looked down. Yeah, they kind of hurt too. They make you look like a prince, she declared, then reached out and tugged lightly on his hand. Can I show you something before you go? He followed her to the living room, where she pointed proudly at the row of small potted herbs lined up on the windowsill. Me and Isabel picked names for them. That one's Basil. He's shy. Wesley crouched beside her. Looks like he's doing all right. I think he likes it here. He glanced at her, his chest tightening. You like it here too, don't you? She nodded, then leaned against him. It's warm. It smells like cookies sometimes. He ruffled her curls gently, trying not to let the emotion show. You'll stay with Isabel tonight, okay? I won't be long. Will Miss Kendra wear a dress like in those dancing movies? He chuckled. Probably even fancier. Do you like her? Wesley hesitated. Yeah, I think I do. Good, she said, then kissed his cheek and skipped off, humming to herself. When he stepped into the foyer, Kendra was already waiting by the elevator, wearing a deep burgundy gown with a low, elegant back and delicate straps. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and a single gold pin held it behind one ear. She turned when she heard him and let her gaze settle on him. You clean up differently when you're not working, she said, a playful glint in her eyes. "Let's hope no one asks me to park a car tonight." "They won't," she said. "They'll be too busy wondering how I ended up with someone who doesn't own cufflinks." He held up his wrists. These were in the box with the jacket. "Blame Isabel." Kendra stepped closer and adjusted the angle of his collar. "You'll be fine." The benefit was held in a private gallery in Soho, the kind of place where art hung on concrete walls and guests were handed champagne before they even crossed the threshold. As they walked in together, Wesley felt the familiar pressure of eyes tracking them, assessing, calculating. He straightened his spine, kept his hand at Kendra's back, and pretended it didn't matter. "What exactly is this for?" he asked quietly as they passed a sculpture made entirely out of chrome wires. "Funding scholarships for low-income STEM students," she said. "It's personal. I was one of those students once." He looked at her, surprised. "You never said. You never asked." A woman in a sequined jumpsuit interrupted their conversation, pulling Kendra into a brief chat about board positions. Wesley stepped aside, watching her navigate it all with a calm ease that made it impossible not to admire her. She wasn't just wealthy, she was respected. People deferred to her, not because of her money, but because she earned it. When she returned, she slid a glass of water into his hand and whispered, "You're doing fine." He gave a small nod. "I keep thinking someone's going to ask me what hedge fund I run." "Let them ask," she said. "Then tell them you run the most exclusive delivery operation in Manhattan." Later, after the speeches and the final toast, they stepped out onto the gallery's rooftop. The city stretched before them, glittering and endless. Kendra leaned on the railing, the wind catching the edge of her gown. Wesley stood beside her. "You didn't have to bring me." "I wanted to. I still don't get why." Her voice was quiet. "Because every time I walk into these rooms, I feel like I'm performing. With you, I don't have to." He looked down at the street below. "Feels strange, doesn't it? You up here, me down there. And now we're somewhere in between." "You're not down there anymore, Wesley." "I don't belong up here either." She turned to face him. "Maybe you belong wherever you decide to stand." He studied her carefully. "You mean that?" "I do." He exhaled slowly. "So where does that leave us?" She reached out, her fingers brushing his. "That depends on whether you're willing to stay." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not unless you tell me to." Kendra's eyes shimmered in the low light. "I think I fell in love with you the second you told Felicity she couldn't have syrup until she said thank you." He laughed under his breath. "That was more for survival than manners." "Still," she said, "it told me everything I needed to know." He stepped closer. "I've got nothing to give you. No connections, no legacy, just me. That's all I want." She leaned in first, and their lips met in a kiss that was soft, sure, and entirely theirs. It wasn't about wealth or status or survival. It was about everything that had bloomed in the quiet moments between them: the unspoken trust, the steady hands, the warmth of a child's laughter echoing through a home that had once been too quiet. When they returned to the penthouse, Felicity was fast asleep, curled under a blanket with her bear tucked beneath her chin. Wesley carried her gently to bed while Kendra stood in the doorway, watching with a look he didn't quite know how to name. Later, as they sat on the balcony with mugs of tea, the skyline glowing around them, Wesley said, "You know, I never believed in second chances." Kendra looked at him. "And now," he reached for her hand, "now I believe in whatever this is." She smiled faintly. "This is home." And for the first time in years, he believed it. Because somehow, after a wrong address, a cold night, and an open door, a poor mechanic and his daughter had found not just shelter but love. Not the fairy tale kind, but the kind built on choice, trust, and the quiet courage to stay. And they weren't going anywhere. Wesley stood in the center of the rooftop garden, his hands buried in his jacket pockets, watching as Felicity raced between rows of citrus trees, her laughter echoing against the stone walls of Kendra's penthouse terrace. She was chasing a butterfly, barefoot, her curls bouncing with every step. The sky above was streaked with pale lavender, the city quiet beneath the weight of a summer dusk. Behind him, the sliding doors opened. Kendra stepped out, holding 2 wine glasses and a small plate of chocolate-covered strawberries. "I thought you didn't drink during the week," he said, turning as she approached. "I don't," she said, handing him a glass. "But tonight's an exception." What's the occasion? She set the plate down on the small table beside the lounge chairs. I finalized the scholarship fund today. The first students will start in the fall. He raised his glass. To them, she echoed, clinking her glass against his. And maybe, to new starts. He watched her for a moment, then lowered his voice. You've been quiet since the gala. I've been thinking, she said, about what kind of life I want. He waited, letting her fill the silence. For a long time, I thought I could only have one version of success. The polished, controlled version. But lately, I've been wondering if I built something beautiful or if I just built a fortress to keep people out. And now I want something different, she said. Something real, messy, alive. Wesley looked down at his glass. You think I'm messy? I think you're the first person who ever made me want to take the walls down, she said, her voice soft but unwavering. That night, after Felicity had fallen asleep with her arms wrapped around a pillow shaped like a lemon, Wesley stood in the kitchen, rinsing a pan. Kendra leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching him. She calls you Miss Kendra less and less, he said. She's testing the waters, Kendra replied. She asked me today why I don't have a daughter of my own. Wesley paused. What did you say? I told her I never found the right person to build that kind of life with. She let the words hang in the air, but maybe I was looking in the wrong places. He dried the pan slowly. I'm not a long-term plan, Kendra. I don't have stocks or a 5-year goal. I'm just trying to keep up. You keep up just fine, she said, and maybe I don't want a plan, maybe I just want a partner. He set the pan down and turned to face her. You really mean that? I wouldn't say it if I didn't. The next morning, Kendra walked into the sunlit breakfast nook where Wesley and Felicity were sharing a bowl of strawberries. She slid a folder onto the table. What's that? Wesley asked. A proposal, she said. For you. He opened it slowly, scanning the pages. You want me to manage the new tech delivery initiative. I need someone who understands logistics, who can connect with people, and who doesn't flinch when a problem hits. He looked up. This is a real job. It's yours if you want it. He closed the folder. I'll have to get a better pair of shoes. Felicity grinned. Can I come to the office sometimes? You'd be the boss's daughter, Kendra said. You'd run the place by lunch. The weeks that followed passed with a quiet rhythm. Wesley settled into the new role, building a team, navigating contracts, and surprising everyone, including himself, with how naturally it fit. Kendra stood beside him in meetings, but never over him. She let him lead, asked his opinion, and trusted him in a way no one ever had. Felicity, now enrolled in a private school with a scholarship Kendra had funded anonymously, flourished. She made friends, joined a dance class, and insisted on packing 2 snacks each day, one to share. She kept a picture of her dad and Kendra taped inside her school folder, along with a sticker of a cartoon rocket ship. One Saturday evening, Wesley stepped out of the elevator with a small velvet box in his pocket. The terrace was lit with hanging lanterns, soft music playing from the corner speakers. Felicity sat cross-legged on a picnic blanket, organizing a tea set. Isabel sat nearby, sipping lemonade and pretending not to notice what was about to happen. Kendra turned as Wesley approached. She wore a pale blue dress that moved like water when she walked, her hair loose around her shoulders. Is this a date? She asked, smiling. Kind of, he said. But there's something I want to say. She tilted her head. You're nervous? Terrified, he admitted. Say it anyway. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the box. You opened a door that night when you didn't have to. You let us in. And everything since then has felt like coming home. I don't have a perfect past, and I'll never be the guy with a yacht or a weekend estate. But I'll show up every day. I'll protect what we've built. I'll love you with everything I've got. He opened the box. The ring was simple, a single diamond set in gold. Kendra's eyes filled. You're not the man I imagined marrying, she said. You're better. You taught me how to breathe again. So is that a yes? She nodded, then stepped forward and kissed him, her hands sliding behind his neck. Felicity clapped from the blanket. Does this mean I get to be the flower girl? You're the boss of the whole wedding, Kendra called back. That fall, beneath the golden canopy of turning leaves, they were married in Central Park. The ceremony was small family, close friends, and a few colleagues who had become something more. Wesley wore a charcoal suit. Kendra wore a dress with sleeves that fluttered in the breeze. Felicity walked ahead of them, tossing orange petals with wild delight. They exchanged vows under the shade of an elm tree, the city skyline rising behind them like a promise. Later, at the reception in a candlelit garden tucked behind an old library, Wesley held Felicity in one arm and Kendra's hand in the other. "I never thought I'd have this," he said. "You didn't get it by luck," Kendra said. "You built it." As the evening deepened and laughter echoed from every table, he leaned in close and whispered, "You're my home now." She kissed him gently. "And you're mine." They danced under the stars, the three of them, father, daughter, and the woman who had taken them in without hesitation and loved them without conditions, and they never looked back.